Day.
And I'm Richard Day.
We're both chiropractors.
We've been in practice together for 11 years.
Married for 10.
With 3 beautiful little girls.
We know it's possible to have an exceptional practice that's built around your life.
Because we've done it.
So we've created this podcast,
the Lifestyle Practice Builders Podcast.
We'll interview chiropractors, answer questions, and bring you resources to help build and grow your practice.
So let's get this party started.
Welcome back to Lifestyle Practice Builders Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Haley Day, and today's podcast, it's going to be a little bit different. It may not be applicable to you today, but listen anyway, because you might find yourself in this moment in the next couple months and want to come back to this podcast and listen to it. And I'm normally an extremely positive person, so it doesn't take long or much effort for me to work through disappointments or tough times. If something doesn't go my way, I quickly can recoup and cope and move on. And as a student, associate, or practice owner, you're going to have these same times when life isn't going your way. So that's kind of what I'm talking about today. I think we've all seen the graph of an entrepreneur. It's very up and down all over the board. And this podcast is going to help you mitigate those down times so you can find inspiration and focus and power through and keep the momentum to continue growing your practice and realizing your dreams. I'm sorry, I'm not on point today. I am not feeling well, but I'm getting over it, and I'm going to power through this and share with you guys, and hope that this helps you when you are kind of having these bad times for yourself. If you're prone to negative thoughts and letting these times get the best of you, then you're definitely going to want to listen, because these are tools that you're going to need when you're in practice so that you can keep that momentum and keep building and succeeding. These were the tools that we needed when we couldn't make rent 1 month in practice. After about a year we were in practice, we had a month where we knew that things were starting to click and work. We opened down during a really bad economy in 2008 or 2009. And it took a while for us to build up and figure out our systems and get going. And when we couldn't make rent, we knew we were on the path to succeed, but that month was tough for us, and we were able to make a plan and move through it. And so part of these things I'm going to talk about today helped us then. They helped us when we lost our initial associate that we had brought on to move from Colorado to Kansas City. She quit within a few months, and it was a hard time. It was right during the holidays. I was 9 months pregnant with our second daughter, and that was a hard time. And a lot of these things I'm going to talk about today helped us get through that. And then when we decided to finish the Chiro Planner by a certain date, we had to work overtime on that. Or when we were in practice, I suddenly lost my dad. And so that was another hard time for us. And these tools helped us get through many of these times and in practice and life. And what I've learned is that the quicker you can cope, the quicker you can get back your momentum, the better that you're going to be, and you're closer to success. A couple weeks ago, I was having a hard moment. I felt uninspired. I didn't want to write. I didn't want to come up with new material for the blog or the podcast because I didn't have the energy for it. I needed a break. My brain was forcing me to take my foot off the pedal and slow down. And so how did I get to this point? I think several things played into it. I had been super inspired, excited to work and launch the Ideal Associate course that we launched a few weeks ago. And I had been working on that for several months. And at the same time, I'd also been taking care of all of our kids because of everyone being home because of COVID. And I'd been homeschooling them. And so I was kind of working overtime on all of these things. I think the culmination of all of this stuff together really kind of burnt me out. And as my kids went back to school and I had more time to really just let go, then I think my body was releasing that energy. And also, I had been planning to go back into almost full-time practice this year, but one of our daughters, she was going to be in full-time preschool at the school, and because of all of the circumstances, we didn't end up doing that. So I'm home with her still this year, and I won't be able to go back into practice full-time, but I still will be able to practice a little bit, but not quite like I was hoping to. And so I think kind of frustrated with that. and frustrated just with how this whole year has gone. I'm guessing you've had times like this in your life. Maybe you've been doing all the things too this year, stressing about COVID, caring for your kids, thinking about whether or not boards would get canceled, rescheduling of seminars you were excited about. I know that happened to me, closing of campus clinics or your own clinic. This year has been a lot to handle for all of us, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there will probably be times again like this. Just the rest of this year, there are so many unknowns. Let's talk about some of the things that I think are important to do when these times come. We're all working so hard, passionately pursuing those dreams, the vision that we talked about last week in the podcast. And 2020 has been a lot to handle all on its own. These moments will happen. So I want to talk about the process, the road that I took to get back to being inspired in such a short amount of time, because it really was a pretty quick turnaround time. And what helped me get back to strategizing and working another plan to bring you all more inspirational, helpful content. I hope it helps you the next time you feel burnout, like you have nothing more to give. Maybe you're in that moment now, giving a lot of yourself to your patients at your office or your family, the school or work, and you're not living your best life. And I bet you're only moments away from changing that feeling back to one of inspiration focus. So stick with me and let's see what I talk about today. When we were in practice, we would hit these same sort of barriers. And I think having the two of us helped, because it's very rare that both of us would have weeks like this at the same time. So when I hit a wall, Rich was able to carry the torch. And when Rich hit a wall, I would have energy and help us through that time. So if you're already in practice, but don't work with your spouse, then maybe you have a non-chiro spouse or a CA that can help you support you through these times. Either way, the first element to conquering these times is having a good support system, someone you can rely on to help you through these times. A couple weeks ago, when I was having my moment, I leaned on Rich for extra support and guidance. My friends all got together, not for me, but the timing was perfect to just hang out and laugh. I think there's been so much less of that this year, and our small gathering was just what I needed. If you try to push through hard times without the support of others, try to develop at least one relationship with someone who can help you through this. If you feel like no one around you understands you, then reach out to a peer you have or had in school that you studied with. We all need these relationships, and identify those around you that you can lean on and be around them when you're in your funk. In return, though, you need to figure out, who do you support in this way? We all need to give in order to get. So make sure you're supporting those in your life that you rely on. And maybe if they don't get you, it's because you aren't taking the time to get them. So I think some of us maybe think we're going to go it alone. And that's kind of how I was through high school and early college. I think I really thought, hey, I can get through this. I'm all I need. I'm very independent. But over time, I've realized what an important role that my friends play in supporting me through these times, and Rich, and, as being a couple and a spouse, that benefit of having different perspective and care during a hard moment in your life. So if you're someone who has traditionally been very independent and you think no one understands you, I guarantee you that if you start developing those relationships and getting that support, that these kinds of times will be a lot easier to navigate through and pick back up that momentum quickly, like you need to do, so that you can get back to succeeding. Another foundational element having to do with this is taking ownership of everything happening in your life. And if this is a hard concept for you, then check out the book Parenting the QBQ Way. It's written by John G. Miller. Even if you aren't a parent, but especially if you are one, I think it's a really awesome book. I didn't write it. I read it this year, and I got so much more out of it, just even for myself than even for parenting. So don't let that turn you off. There is just a QBQ book, but I think it's more for the workplace. I haven't read it, but I feel like the parenting one was a more personal one. And so it really gave examples for everyday living rather than maybe in the workplace type. But the book explains how you can take ownership of your life and help those around you to do the same. Your kids, your spouse, your coworkers. And we need to start holding ourselves accountable and taking ownership of our wins and losses. And think about something you're frustrated with right now. How can you change things? What can you do to create a better life or circumstance? And you really want to avoid placing blame on others or things or circumstance. and think about the ways you could have actually changed the scenario by making a better choice or being more proactive or being more aware of what's going on. So I think that's another great thing. Okay, so having supportive relationships, taking ownership of your life, and the third major foundational element is being grateful. Be grateful for all the good. Think about all the good in your life. When we get down on ourselves or with our situation, we're often mad about a mistake we made or the results of our efforts. And these little missteps, some might call failures, but I like to think of them as lessons we learn from so we can do, be, and create better. They make us feel bad. In the moment, we feel bad because we feel like we failed, but we all have a life of major accomplishments to fall back on and remind us that we are actually successful. And that one moment doesn't define you. You're not a bad doctor if you forget to adjust someone's wrist they're complaining about because you get too busy talking to them, which I think we've all done. But you should remind yourself to be more present for others. Follow up with that patient on the next visit and go above and beyond for their issue. And you're not a bad student because you fail a class or a part of boards. It just means you need to work harder next time, study more, be more present when you're studying or for even the test. So be grateful for everything that has gone right. A good education, passing boards, patient success stories, a good marriage, surviving the first year with your first kid. These are things that there aren't awards for, but they're major accomplishments. And I think when you find yourself at a hard time, that reminding yourself of all of these good things that you have in your life is so important, and clearing up whatever kind of failure you feel from that moment and moving on is what you need. So if you find yourself having a bad week, low energy, uninspired, like 2020 all over again, look for supportive relationships. Think about how you can take ownership of your life and be grateful about everything that has gone wrong. But outside of all of this, something you need to be doing every day regardless is creating good habits. And I talk about this ad nauseum. But good habits are actions we take every day without even thinking about it, and they will carry you through any day. Showing up for yourself, for your family becomes a habit, and it starts with self-care. And you need to eat well, exercise, sleep, and for sure clean yourself. Please take a shower even when you're not feeling right. Always put your focus on self-care first. If you are finding yourself really down, taking care of yourself can only help, and not caring for yourself can only hurt. As doctors or future doctors, we know how important nourishing food, beneficial exercise, restorative rest and sleep, and good hygiene help a person's overall well-being. So whenever you're not feeling well, I know for us, we take a hot shower. It's one of the first things we do. We make a healthy meal. We go for a walk. These are all good things. So if you find yourself resorting to bad habits like eating poorly or staying up binging Netflix, try to change those habits so that you can really speed up that ability to cope and move on through a hard time. When I was in my funk, I also focused on other habits I have. I kept creating podcasts, writing blogs, caring for patients, caring for my family, all the things I always do. And last week I was able to rely on using the podcast I'd recorded earlier, and that was good. And I wouldn't have had that had I not had good habits prior and been recording and kind of prepping myself for the future. And when I write something for you guys or produce a podcast, I want it to be good. Like when you go into your office or clinic, you want to show up for your patients. You don't want to go in, go through the motions and leave. You're there for a reason. And by working ahead, mentally preparing and building these good habits, you can do that. As a side note to that, I am setting up a bunch more interviews to have for you all to listen to through the holidays. I'm very excited about them and also excited to have awesome content to provide to you all during that time that also allows me to spend time with my family and friends. So I just want to let you know more interviews are coming. I'm excited about them. I really hope this podcast that I recorded today helps you. I'm sorry that I'm kind of froggy and I'm not feeling well, but I put a lot of effort into creating the notes for this podcast. And I really want to help you guys. We're in this together. We all have hard moments. We all feel like we're not adequate or things aren't going right for us. And it's really important that you understand that the sooner you can get back to that healthy mindset of figuring it out and focusing yourself more on the things that matter and that you can control and change and moving those forward, it's going to get you back into that momentum state to carry you into succeeding in practice and life in all areas of your life. So I can't be the only one to ever have a bad week. If you are having a bad day or week, find a friend, ask yourself how you can show it better. Think of everything you're grateful for and appreciate in life. Stay focused on your habits and think about what better habits you can form to help you do and be better. Start making better choices. And if you can't figure out the better choices, talk to others and talk it out. If all else fails, reach out to us, send me a DM. If you made it this far in the podcast, and I'm here to help you because I know you're helping yourself. You're learning not just about chiropractic technique or business, you're also concerned with self-growth and adding tools to your toolbox for all areas of your life. And I hope you all have a great week. We have some exciting content coming up for the next couple of months, a new ebook I've written for you, and the holidays. I appreciate you all. Have an awesome day.
If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please share it with your friends on Instagram and Facebook. And for those of you who are already subscribers, we really appreciate it. Thanks for the reviews. We love reading those and knowing that you're loving the podcast. If you're looking for more tips and inspiration, be sure to check us out at lifestylepracticebuilders.com or join our business and marketing Facebook group for chiropractors at facebook.com/group/lifestylepractice.